My older brother is a bit of a bum. It's mean to say, but it's true. He can never hang on to a job for longer than a couple of years max. And when he inevitably loses whatever job he had, he starts mooching off family and friends until he can find another job months later. This entails freeloading at their place, eating their food, using their stuff, etc. He's lost friends because of how long he bummed off them, and I don't blame them for cutting him off. The last time he lost his job, he went to our parents. Still, they didn't have room because they were letting our eldest brother's family stay with them after he and sister-in-law lost their jobs out of nowhere within the same month. Eldest brother's entire crew was laid off with zero warning, and sister-in-law's work burned down. They couldn't afford the home they were renting anymore, so our parents, aunt, and uncle all started calling me, asking if I'd take him in just long enough so he could get on his feet again. I stupidly let myself feel bad for him and said okay, but he only had a few months to get another job, or he was out on the street. They all said, of course, and so he came to stay with me, and it was a nightmare. He's a slob. He never washes dishes, never washes his clothes, and eats pretty much whatever he wants. So I guess since I'm his little sister, he figured he could ignore me saying to get his act together. Well, after 6 months, I told him he had to go and gave him a couple of weeks to find somewhere else. Well, it seems he called our parents and cried about me kicking him out, and they told him he knew he couldn't stay forever. But they also, of course, called my aunts and uncles and told them all about it. And my busybody aunt called me and scolded me for being cruel to my brother and abandoning family when they need help. I let her talk and finally said she was right. Helping family was important, and I'm glad she showed me that. She seemed delighted I understood the right thing to do before hanging up. So I followed her advice, packed my bro up, and drove him to her house. Of course, I couldn't take care of him anymore. He was running all my bills up. But my aunt made a good point. A family should help each other out. So I dropped him off there. She has room since all her kids moved out and then left. But I wasn't even halfway home before getting multiple calls from my parents and aunt. Parents demanding to know why our aunt was blowing up their phones, and aunt was leaving voicemails shouting at me to come back and get my brother. I explained to my parents, and they said it was a good idea since aunt sounded like she wanted to help. But my aunt called me an idiot and said she didn't want my brother there. And when I told her, family helps each other, she called me a nasty idiot. Last I checked, he's still living with her. Am I the idiot? Edit. My brother doesn't work menial jobs. He's not just hopping from one minimum wage job to another. He's working very good paying jobs, like electronic repair, automotive maintenance, etc. He's very skilled but lazy. He was upset I was kicking him out initially, but in a better mood when he realized I had another place lined up for him to stay. I'm not sure how they're doing together since I haven't talked to either since I dropped him off. Also, my aunt is not married anymore. She and my uncle got divorced, and he lives with his new wife, but I heard from Dad that he thought this all was hilarious. Yes, someone finally took action and dropped the mooch off to the family member who loves to scold, but not help. You are absolutely iconic. Oh, and your parents agreed that the nosy aunt, who should have minded her damn business, should help? Double iconic. This is the best thing I've read today. What a queen. Yes, you are, ma'am. Good job for being kind enough to give him a chance, and for being strong enough to boot him out when you were fed up. People love to point out problems but offer no solutions. You did an awesome job of ensuring that your aunt was part of the solution. I'm sorry you have that kind of sibling to deal with, and it was obviously horrible having him stay with you, but your action had me laughing my head off. I'm cracking up at your aunt thinking she got you to do what she wanted, but her words backfired on her. Well done, OP. A clear case of not the idiot, as there ever has been. Me, 28 female, and my husband, 29, have been married for 5 years. My husband was a nurse until he told me he wanted to become a doctor. I was fully supportive, and he is now in his first year of medical school. I have supported both of us, as he cannot work while in school. But I recently found out our rent was being raised by $500 at the end of our contract, April. This was honestly the last straw, as it pushed us past where we were financially comfortable. So I raised the idea of buying a home. This has been a conversation for years, but my husband had always said we could after he paid off his school debt from nursing, paid off early 2020. I asked my mother, real estate agent, who told me that it would be better for that money to go towards mortgage repayments and not rent with what we'd be paying. I brought this all up to my husband, who shut it down almost immediately. He told me we agreed to wait until he had paid off all his debt. I told him that was for nursing and that he was in school for 6 years, which was hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt, and some doctors don't pay off their debt for 20+ years. I told him I had been supportive of this career change and by financially supporting the household, but that it was the best decision for us and would relieve the financial burden for me. I brought up the savings we had for our deposit and how we could afford something small and modest within budget, but he told me it was in our best interest to use that money to pay off his loans. I asked him if he realized the financial burden this would put on me, but he said it was temporary and eventually he'd make more than me, so it would be even, and I agreed to this. My mother called and asked if we were going to look into buying a house, but I told her we weren't and we'd be looking for somewhere cheaper to rent instead. However, she insisted we at least consider it because it made the most financial sense and asked if it was because we didn't have a down deposit. I told her that we would probably use that to pay off my husband's debt, and he didn't want more debt until he was debt-free from student loans. Days later, my mother and father came for lunch and told us they had news. They offered to gift us the down deposit of a home. I was over the moon and shocked by the offer. Once they left, my husband exploded on me, claiming I emasculated him and made him look bad in front of my parents. I told him I never asked for this, but we should take it as it's a privilege most people don't get and would relieve so much financial burden on me. He refused to talk to me or my parents until we apologized for shaming/emasculating him, but I refused to. I apologized, but I told him I wouldn't make my parents, as they'd done nothing wrong. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Your husband is straight up ridiculous. Is he otherwise a good partner? Is he thoughtful? Is he kind? Does he respect you in every other area of your life besides this one? And I mean everywhere, because if he isn't, I would wonder if it's worth being married to someone acting like this. The kind of emasculation he's describing doesn't actually exist. It's a byproduct of toxic masculinity, and it's just nonsense. 100% agree. His wife is supporting him through costly and lengthy training to realize his dreams. It's funny how that doesn't emasculate him, but he's emasculated by the generosity that would ensure she isn't massively struggling and has some stability. OP, do not use your savings to pay off his debt. You could end up with absolutely nothing. If this indicates his attitude generally, then leave now, take your half of the savings, and buy a place with your parents' help. Not the idiot, just something to consider. But if you help pay off his student loans and financially support him for the next 10 years, say, then he divorces you. You are left with nothing, and him, a debt-free life earning a doctor's salary. So sorry, OP, but you're simply this guy's starter wife and he knows it. That's why he's so worried about going in on the house and carrying his own debt load past med school. I think you're going to get burned here. My town is very small, and we only have one dog park around here. Most dog owners know each other at this point. This dog park is very safe and organized. They have a vet nurse office nearby, and it's separated into 2 sections, one for smaller dogs and one for bigger dogs. I have 2 dogs, one weenie and a pit bull mix. My fiance had taken our weenie to the smaller section of the park, and I had our pit bull at the bigger section. The dogs there are all running around and being playful and messy. At some point, a woman comes at the bigger section of the park and sits there with her kids, while also letting her kids play in dog activities and toys. There was something like a dog slide, and she'd let her kids go there, and she'd get mad when people had their dogs on the slide and would yell at them to make space for her kids. Finally, several owners reminded her this was a dog park. She didn't leave, but she sat on a bench. At some point, some dogs were running around playing, and her kids were running after the dogs, and one dog pushed a kid while running and threw the kid to the ground. The lady started asking for the owner, and once she found the owner, She started screaming at her about letting her dog trip her kid. She kept screaming, and everyone was trying to be kind, and at some point, another owner and I started matching her energy and yelling at her, telling her that her kids do not belong in a dog park and she should pack them up and get off. She left after 5 minutes while threatening to sue the dog owner. I discussed this with my fiance's sister and her husband that same night when they visited us. They claimed I was an idiot for yelling at a lady for being concerned that her kid got hurt by a dog, and claimed that my fiance and I need a reality check if we defend dogs over kids getting hurt. Am I the idiot? How does stuff like this happen? While reading this, I actually quite literally can't wrap my head around things like this happen in the real world. She brings her kids to the dog park and yells at dog owners for their dogs getting in the way. You matched her energy with another dog owner, and of course you would, because what the heck? I'd say not the idiot, because she honestly truly needs a wake-up call. My God. Who the heck brings kids to a dog park with no dog, then proceeds to be angry about dogs at the dog park? I wouldn't take my dog to a regular park and complain about kids playing with or petting my dog. If a kid climbs my fence and meets my dog, I am not going to be more concerned about that kid than my dog either. This lady just wanted her kids to have play equipment without other kids around and expected y'all to keep the dogs far away to avoid confrontation. She was sorely mistaken. Not the idiot, OP. It's a dog park. Kids don't belong here. Everyone's the idiot here. Mostly the lady that ignored it was a dog park, obviously. But what was going on was really none of your business. Yes, she was wrong, but she wasn't yelling at you, and you piling on and screaming at her while cussing didn't help anything. You noticed her and watched from the very beginning. If you wanted to help, you should have stepped back and called the police or authorities right away. You can't say it wasn't your place to call because you thought it was your place to get in her face. My girlfriend loves to read, and she gets really involved with the books she's reading, and she usually rants and raves about them. It was never a problem, but about 3 months ago, she started to read a lot of romance novels. This happens at least twice a week. She has started to project things onto me. For instance, if she's mad at someone in the book, she gets mad at me. Some days she will tell me not to speak to her and criticize me, and I would be wondering what I did wrong and try to talk to her, and she'll just leave the room. The next day she sheepishly tells me that she had been mad about something that happened in the book. She also sometimes gets mad at me and points out something really romantic the lead may have done for the woman, and she gets upset at me for not being that romantic. This is easier to deal with as I just have to be romantic and smooth talk her a bit, which I love to do anyway. Having to figure if it's a real issue or just her being angry about a book is hard, and she gets even more annoyed if I ask her if it's about the book. So I've just been ignoring it because I never thought it would be a huge issue. I had a horrible day at work, and I was pretty crushed and exhausted. I greeted her and she ignored me, and I asked if she was actually mad at me or if she was sulking about a book. She told me to screw off. I wanted to tell her how bad it had been, but I really couldn't after she dismissed me like that. I did, and I decided to rest and play games as I was tired and didn't want to cook. So I ordered food for us, and I was gaming when she asked me if I was making dinner, and I told her I was too tired to cook and had ordered food. She loves to eat home-cooked food and is not a fan of eating out in general, and she called me lazy. I snapped that maybe one of her imaginary boyfriends could cook for her because I was too tired to do it. She refused to eat the food I ordered, and she went to bed hungry, and I feel like such an idiot right now. I feel terrible that I upset her, and I know that I should have dealt with this maturely and not insulted her. So, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. That's super unhealthy of her. She's basically living vicariously through the characters in the book and making it your responsibility to navigate handling her mood swings over it. I love to read, and I've gotten super emotional over characters, but I've never expected real life to mirror fiction or blame someone else for what happened in the story. That's just taking it too far. She sounds very immature and unhappy. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so invested in something that isn't real. People in romance stories are not real, and they're unrealistic. She needs help in therapy to figure out what's missing in her life, but she's not ready for a grown-up relationship, and I tell her that right now. They're just not a match, and I take a break, maybe forever. You are the idiot to yourself if you stay with this girl. I had to reread this when you mentioned getting home from work, because up until then, I was certain this girl was a teen. This is no way for a grown woman to behave. Get out while the getting is good and do it fast. You don't want to know what a crazy person is capable of when faced with the prospect of rejection. My husband, 48, and I, 38 female, were at the shopping mall to do errands. We had to pick up some dry cleaning and tailored items and do some grocery shopping. The problem is, they are both at opposite ends of the shopping center. So instead of wasting time and doing it together, we both decided to split up. And after I had collected the dry cleaning and put it in the car, I would go to the grocery store and finish up the shopping with him. I collected the clothes, put them in a car, and walked to the grocery store. And guess who walks out the exact moment I get to the entrance? My husband. He tells me that he finished in record time and that he doesn't get what takes me so long when I normally do the shopping. I am a stay-at-home mom who usually does the weekly shop. I asked him if he got everything on the list I sent him. He said yes. We get home and I find out that he didn't get the pads for our teen daughter and me. I asked him if he had forgotten, and he just told me that buying sanitary products was not his job and that there were so many options and he didn't know. This got me angry because I gave him the link to the specific one in the list in a picture, and he still couldn't get it. I asked him why he was weaponizing his incompetence, and he just left the room after telling me to stop using buzzwords and take some accountability. I yelled back at him that he was a useless husband and couldn't do a simple shop. He thinks I'm an idiot for not being responsible for my daughter and I's products and calling him useless. Am I the idiot? Edit. Pads were not out of stock. The grocery store website has the product marked as in stock at that store. Husband saw the pads were on the list and just skipped them, not bothering to even go into the aisle. Not the idiot. You're completely correct about weaponized incompetence. Either that or he's a complete idiot. Plus the fact that he put you down, saying I don't understand why you take so long to shop. He didn't even try. He can claim ignorance when it comes to feminine hygiene products, but my view is when you're a man with a daughter, your ignorance is no longer cute. It's irresponsible. If you have a daughter and you're ignorant of their particular issues, you damn well better learn. What if, God forbid, something happens to you? Is he just going to say, oh well, she'll just have to go buy them herself? And it doesn't even have to be the worst case scenario. Suppose you're out of town for a few days, or you're sick and can't do the shopping. Your husband is completely in the wrong. He has a daughter, and it's now his job to get savvy regarding his daughter's needs. I once saw a teenage lad standing in front of the sanitary products in the supermarket, clearly panicking. I stopped to ask if he was okay, and he told me his mom had broken her leg and couldn't get to the shops. She told him what to buy, but he couldn't find the right thing. It turned out that the ones she wanted were out, so I helped him find something similar. He'd been standing there for nearly 40 minutes, unable to approach a strange woman for information about menstrual products, poor lad. He was 15, and still more of a man than your husband. I feel sorry for your daughter, OP.